Let's jump right in. Because today in this explainer, we're unpacking a case that didn't just dominate the headlines. It fundamentally shattered the innocence of an entire nation. Just picture the scene for a second. It's August 9th, 1969, just after midnight, up in the exclusive hills of Benedict Canyon in Los Angeles. The summer night is totally quiet, but that peace is about to be destroyed in a way that people will literally be talking about for decades.
7. That's the number we really need to start with. Across 2 consecutive nights, in some of LA's absolute most affluent neighborhoods, 7 innocent people were brutally murdered. And these weren't random burglaries gone wrong, They were calculated, savage acts of violence, completely designed to send an absolutely terrifying message to the world. Okay, let's dive into this next number, 0. Because this represents arguably the most shocking truth of this entire case. The mastermind behind this whole reign of terror, Charles Manson, didn't personally kill a single one of those 7 victims. No way. He wasn't the one actually wielding the knife. Instead, he orchestrated the entire slaughter through a group of totally devoted followers.
Part 1. The end of the 1960s. The Cielo Drive and La Bianca murders.
So on that first night at Cielo Drive, his followers broke in and took the lives of actress Sharon Tate and 4 others with just horrifying brutality. I mean, even as Tate pleaded for the life of her unborn child, they showed absolutely no mercy. And before leaving, they left a really gruesome sign. They literally used the victim's blood to write the word pig on the front door. But incredibly, the terror didn't end there. Manson actually felt the first night's murders were too sloppy. So the very next night, he accompanied the group himself to pick out new victims. They broke into the home of a supermarket executive named Lino LaBianca and his wife, Rosemary. Manson tied them up, casually left the house, and then ordered his followers to butcher them. This time, they wrote Rise, Death to Pigs, and Helter Skelter, which they actually misspelled, by the way, in blood on the walls and refrigerator.
Part 2. The making of a monster. From prison to cult leader.
And this brilliantly illustrates the timeline. You have to wonder, right? How does an ordinary person convince young adults to commit such unimaginable atrocities? Well, Charles Manson was born in Cincinnati in 1934 to an unwed 16-year-old mother, and he spent almost his entire childhood bouncing around reformatories. By the time he was released from federal prison in 1967, he had developed this obsessive, totally consuming interest in psychological manipulation. He walked straight out of prison and right into San Francisco's Summer of Love. By 1968, he'd gathered up his followers and moved them to Spahn Ranch, this old movie set which ultimately set the stage for that tragic climax in August 1969.
So how did he do it? He specifically targeted really vulnerable teenage runaways. Kids who were desperately searching for some kind of belonging in the whole counterculture movement. He offered them a community, sure, but then systematically stripped away every ounce of their autonomy. He kept them completely isolated at Spahn Ranch, pushed heavy LSD use, and exerted such total psychological and physical control over them that his followers literally addressed him as Satan, Jesus, and God.
Part 3. The Helter Skelter Prophecy, a twisted interpretation.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the sheer disconnect between reality and Manson's delusion. See, Manson desperately wanted to be a rock star, and when a producer named Terry Melcher rejected him, that ambition just curdled into a blinding, toxic rage. A rage he eventually aimed right at Melcher's former Cielo Drive home. He essentially hijacked pop culture to justify it. When the Beatles released Helter Skelter, which was just a chaotic rock song Paul McCartney wrote using a playground slide as a metaphor for the fall of the Roman Empire, Manson heard something completely different. He thought it was a literal prophecy of an apocalyptic race war. And his grand plan? The family would hide out in the desert during the slaughter and then emerge later to just rule the world. But when this predicted race war didn't just naturally happen on its own, Manson grew desperate. He decided they had to ignite the spark themselves. So on August 8th, he gathered his followers and told them, now is the time for Helter Skelter. He flat out ordered them to commit savage crimes in upscale neighborhoods to frame African Americans and triggered this war. His right-hand man, Tex Watson, had so completely surrendered his own identity to this bizarre delusion that he famously announced at the Tate House, "I am the devil, and I'm here to do the devil's business."
Part 4. The Arrest. Cracking the Case.
So, the crucial point is, the immediate aftermath of the murders was just massive public panic and a totally chaotic investigation. Honestly, for weeks, the LAPD didn't even connect the 2 crime scenes. The killers had essentially slipped right through their fingers. What finally broke the case wasn't some brilliant high-tech forensics, it was pure ego. Follower Susan Atkins was sitting in jail on a totally unrelated charge, and she just started bragging to a cellmate. She chillingly claimed they wanted to do a crime that would shock the world.
And that jailhouse brag, that's what connected all the dots. It's like a giant puzzle suddenly falling into place. Back in October 1969, officers had actually raided the family's hideout at Barker Ranch in Death Valley for some completely unrelated auto thefts. They literally had no idea they already had the Cielo Drive killers in custody. But once Atkins confessed to her cellmate, investigators went back, matched a fingerprint found at the front door of the Tate home straight to Tex Watson, and firmly tied Manson's group to the murders.
Part 5. The Trial of the Century. A courtroom spectacle.
Let's move to and see how this builds into an absolute media frenzy. Lead prosecutor Vincent Bugliosi used the helter-skelter prophecy to try and explain this seemingly unexplainable motive to the jury. Meanwhile, Manson was busy turning the courtroom into a total circus. I mean, he actually carved an X into his own forehead right there, declaring he was cut off from society. And what's really terrifying is the absolute control he still wielded from behind bars. His female followers immediately sat on the pavement outside the courthouse, shaved their heads, and carved X's into their own foreheads just in solidarity. Inside, Manson was continually disruptive, literally lunging at the judge with a pencil at one point. Ultimately, the prosecution secured the conviction by relying on Linda Kasabian, a follower who was present at the scenes but didn't actually kill anyone, who testified with immunity.
So, to put that into perspective, let's look at the results. The jury entirely accepted Bugliosi's framework. Charles Manson and his followers were convicted of first-degree murder. They were originally sentenced to death, but actually those sentences were automatically commuted to life imprisonment in 1972 when California briefly abolished the death penalty. Manson ended up spending the rest of his life behind bars. He was denied parole 12 times and finally died in prison in 2017 at the age of 83.
Part 6. A dark, lasting legacy. The end of the counterculture.
You see, the Manson murders didn't just end 7 lives. They became a real synecdoche, a dark symbol for the sudden, violent death of the 1960s counterculture. As the legendary writer Joan Didion perfectly captured it, the innocence of the hippie movement was just completely shattered. The whole peace and love generation woke up to the horrific realization that their open doors and trusting nature had been totally exploited by a predator who actually had nothing but contempt for them. The word of these murders spread like wildfire, and they sparked an endless true crime fascination, inspiring blockbuster movies and best-selling books. Because honestly, the psychological weight of this tragedy is just incredibly hard to shake.
To wrap up this explainer, we really have to sit with a profoundly unsettling question. How did an uneducated man with literally nothing to offer but his own twisted certainty convince ordinary, intelligent young people to slaughter total strangers? It really forces us to look at the dangerous power of the human need for belonging and the terrifying reality of what happens when that need is exploited. It is a dark chapter, for sure, but understanding how someone like Manson operated, well, that's really the only way we can recognize when it's happening again.